I certainly don't favor a government shutdown. The president is the one who has actually said he favors a shutdown and called it a good thing. What we need, he said, was a good government shutdown. There is no such thing. A shutdown is a failure in terms of the function of government. So, no, I don't favor a government shutdown, but neither do I favor a gun to my head to accept $5 billion for something he promised and that he promised Mexicans would pay for.
That Congressman Gerry Connolly, Democrat from Virginia, saying he won't play ball with the president when it comes to the wall. That is, the president threatened another government shutdown. Congressional leaders just extending the deadline late today for a funding bill. So the looming shutdown, it's been pushed off for 2 weeks from this coming Friday. But the biggest issue remains funding for the wall. Trump, he wants $5 billion or he won't take yes for an answer. Now, here to talk about that and much more, Steve Rothman, former New Jersey Congressman. He served on both the Judiciary and Foreign Affairs Committee, so we have a bunch of questions for Steve. First off, Democrats seem willing to not blink in a game of chicken with the president, saying, wait a minute, you said Mexico is paying for this whole thing, and if you think you're going to shut the government down if we don't pay for it, let's take our chances with the public. Good politics or not?
Well, it may be good politics, but let's take politics off the table. This is about what's best for the United States of America. So President Trump tells the Democrats, go work out an agreement with the Republicans, bring back to me a bipartisan effort, and I'll prove it. So the Democrats work out a bipartisan spending bill with the Republicans, brings it to President Trump, and he says, no. In fact, I may just shut the government down unless we change the rules entirely and you just give me $5 billion for a wall that most experts say could be better spent to protect our border by doing it other ways.
But the idea that somehow, in his metrics, with still a Republican House and Senate until January, at least for the House, and obviously a Republican White House, that the Democrats would be blamed if the government shut its doors. It's crazy. Every historical says who's ever sitting in the big chair in the Oval, they get blamed for a shutdown, especially somebody who says it'd be good.
Well, then maybe there's some justice in the fact that the president went back on his word. What a surprise.
Yep.
This is a president, and it doesn't make me feel happy to say this, who is a compulsive liar.
Now, I want to get to, I mentioned Judiciary, okay, and you know this well. Your old colleague, Jerry Nadler, he's going to get the gavel come January. I can certainly understand the temptation, and even maybe the justification for Democrats to say, for the last 2 years, this Congress has abdicated their responsibility on a raft of different issues, whether it be corruption, whether it just be, oversight, whatever the case may be, and finally now, we're going to do our job. Conversely, if they spend every waking moment with hearings, I can hear certain Americans say, this is just gotcha. They don't like the president. They just want to have hearings 7 times a week here and twice on Sunday just because it's payback time. Do you think Democrats are going to be able to navigate this the right way, or do you think they're going to give in to temptation, it'll be viewed as overkill, and somehow, some way, the president will be the victim?
Couple of answers, Richard. Number one, I don't think the Democrats are going to engage in overkill because you have Nancy Pelosi, who hopefully be the next speaker, and she is brilliant, she is tough, she is a seasoned pro who will prevent overreach by her party.
You acknowledge it's a real risk, though, right?
Oh, absolutely. And Jerry Nadler, who I served with for 4 years on Judiciary, but this is not a witch hunt. You have the potential of a person who, while he was running for the United States presidency, and after he got the job, was involved with Russia to try to make money there in a project he'd been talking about since 1987, Trump Tower Moscow. And you have Michael Flynn lied about it, his national security director, his personal attorney, Michael Cohen, Donald Trump Jr., Donald Trump Sr. So many others lied about it.
Okay, finally, I want to play a soundbite. This from President Obama talking about now the late President Bush. And again, going back to your foreign policy roots, what he chose not to do at a certain time in American history.
I think when it comes to foreign policy, the work that President George H.W. Bush did with Jim at his side was as important and as deft and as effective a set of foreign policy initiatives as we saw in recent years, and deserve enormous credit for navigating the end of the Cold War in a way that could have gone sideways all kinds of ways.
The point President Obama was making is Bush could have spiked the football when the wall came down in Berlin, when the dissolution of the former Soviet Union, but in a mini version of the Marshall Plan, he helped build up some of these places, and he took no great joy in saying, we win, you lose. Imagine putting it in today's context what would happen. But my point is, the idea of America first, second, and last at the exclusion of the world, if you have a brief knowledge of history, and you have a deep one, that's a perilous worldview. And you don't have to look that far back to imagine, God forbid, what could have happened if people were like, we win, you lose, and by the way, I'm going to occupy places that I didn't before you fell apart at the seams.
That's absolutely correct. And one other element, we can't do this alone as the United States of America. We needed allies to defeat Hitler and Japan in World War II. We need allies in Afghanistan, in the Middle East. We need allies. But when you have a president who literally berates our best allies in public in an unprecedentedly harsh way, it's not a good thing. So yes, President George H.W. Bush's manner, civility, and calmness was great. I also was on the Defense Subcommittee of Appropriations, and so his work in getting a multilateral effort against Saddam Hussein.
We literally had a unit from Syria, a unit from Egypt. Right. As long as they didn't go into Iraq, they were with us in Kuwait for the liberation, which is amazing.
That's because you had Saddam Hussein invaded the sovereign nation of Kuwait, and the world couldn't stand for it.
Interesting as always, going around the world with you, and certainly around Capitol Hill. Congressman, I always appreciate the time.
Me too.
And coming up next, we will remember George H.W. Bush as we take a look back at Bush 41, the family man.